June 12, 2026, the exact day Toronto literally transformed into the epicenter of the global sporting world. Welcome to this explainer, everyone. Today, we're diving right into the live broadcast details surrounding Canada's absolutely monumental first-ever Men's World Cup match on home soil. We're going to unpack exactly how a mega event like this actually operates, right? From the intense human emotions just vibrating through the city to the massive logistical master plan keeping the whole shebang running smoothly.
Okay, so to truly grasp the stakes here, just listen to this quote from reporter Nathan Downer. He was stationed right outside the FIFA fan zone at Toronto Stadium. And, despite attending countless major sporting events in his career, he noted that the nervous jitters in the air were entirely palpable. And why is that? Well, because this was totally unprecedented. The sheer weight of history happening right in their own backyard changed the atmosphere entirely. It wasn't just a game anymore, it was a cultural milestone.
And that spotlight, it isn't just local, it is glaringly global. Because this match is being broadcast prime time in Europe at exactly 9 p.m., the eyes of the world's most dedicated football-watching populations are totally locked onto Toronto. Team Canada isn't just playing for the roaring fans in the stands, right? They are performing on the ultimate international stage.
Moving into part 1, Voices of the Fans, the Heart of the World Cup.
So the grounds themselves were just an absolute melting pot. Reporters were talking to Scottish veterans of the HMS Ajax who threw on Scotland badges just to cheer for Canada, and even a Bolivian couple who simply adopted Canada as their team. But honestly, perhaps the most touching story was of a young fan named Kenton. He worked incredibly hard to save up and buy these highly coveted World Cup tickets to surprise his single mother. It was essentially a thank you tour for a lifetime of investing in his experiences, all while she was juggling a full-time job and launching a new business.
Because really, behind every single jersey in that massive crowd is a relatable human story. Kenton put it so perfectly, simply saying, "I just want to pay her back." It's such a powerful reminder of why these massive sporting events matter so much to us. Beneath all the corporate sponsorships and the huge global broadcasts, they're really just conduits for gratitude, for connection, and for making family memories that are literally going to last a lifetime.
Now, going into the match, there were some pretty genuine questions about whether the Canadian team would actually be drowned out by the visiting fans. But the reality? A staggering 90% of the stadium formed this absolute roaring sea of red. But what was so cool is that beautifully contrasted against that red were thousands of passionate Bosnian fans marching in blue and yellow right down to the stadium. It was a flawless snapshot of Toronto's renowned diversity. A home game for Canada that simultaneously felt remarkably welcoming to the entire international community. All right, part 2, the pitch and the players, inside Toronto Stadium. Let's get into it.
Interestingly enough, the stadium's smaller size is actually being viewed as a massive home field advantage. While the venue definitely faced some criticism leading up to the tournament for its temporary stands and, its relatively small footprint, this intimacy is actually a strategic weapon. Many Canadian players, specifically the guys from Toronto FC, know every single inch of this pitch. And when you pack that tight stadium with a 90% pro-Canada crowd, it creates an absolute cauldron of noise that visiting teams are just not prepared for.
And to match the historic weight of the moment, they pulled out all the stops with a massive celebrity lineup to really hype up the crowd. I mean, Canadian music royalty was tapped for the event. We're talking Alanis Morissette belting out the national anthem, alongside performances from Michael Bublé and Alessia Cara. Bringing in this level of pageantry completely elevates the match from a standard sporting event to a true nationwide celebration.
But what about the squad itself? Despite some mounting concerns about injuries, coach Jesse Marsh confirmed that the team is fully ready to go. The one notable exception, though, is star player Alphonso Davies, who was sidelined with a hamstring injury. But hey, the good news is that his body is responding really well, and the optimistic hope is that he's going to return for games 2 or 3 when they head out west of Vancouver. For today, however, the rest of the squad is healthy, and they are incredibly eager to finally get to work.
Moving on to part 3, navigating the mega event, citywide logistics.
Now, hosting a 5-week global tournament requires an absolutely astonishing level of execution. Navigating the city today meant following a very strict transit master plan. The first rule, leave the car at home. Literally, there is zero public parking on site, none. Instead, the city heavily boosted train services like the Lakeshore West Go line and added these special TTC express buses just to seamlessly move tens of thousands of fans. And to prevent total chaos, the Transit Authority deployed staff in highly visible red jerseys all across key locations just to act as human wayfinders.
But getting to the stadium is really just half the battle, right?
because fans had to navigate incredibly strict FIFA entry rules. We're talking clear plastic bags only. If you wanted to bring a massive flag, you had to have prior written approval. And then, okay, there's the water rule. Fans were allowed to bring in a bottle holding a highly specific 591 milliliters. Although, if we follow the literal typo on the official rule sheet of 5.91 milliliters, you're essentially allowed to bring in like a single teardrop of hydration. But jokes aside, these hyper-specific regulations are absolutely vital to keep security lines moving safely without creating massive bottlenecks.
And speaking of safety, behind all the celebrations, public health and medical networks quietly scaled up their operations big time. Because this influx of international tourists spans over a whole month, Toronto's medical officer of health initiated heightened monitoring for infectious diseases. Furthermore, all Toronto hospitals were placed on Code Orange disaster standby. Basically, these are proactive plans to instantly free up space and resources in the rare event of a mass emergency. It is a sobering but deeply, deeply necessary layer of mega event planning.
Thankfully, though, the atmosphere on the ground was purely celebratory, heavily influenced by the elements. It was a hot, incredibly windy, but just beautiful day out there. Temperatures set at 26 degrees Celsius, but, with the humidity, it felt more like 30, with winds gusting at a pretty intense 50 kilometers per hour. Inside the open-air stadium, officials were running sprinklers to actively cool the grass. These bright, breezy conditions were absolutely perfect, and not just for the ticket holders, but for the thousands and thousands of people gathering at the free public watch party at Nathan Phillips Square.
Which brings us finally to this single-digit 1. This number represents Canada's hunt for their first ever Men's World Cup win today. In their 2 previous appearances, they had never actually secured a victory. So, the ultimate question hanging over the entire city of Toronto right now is this. Will the unprecedented roar of a home crowd, that familiar, intimate stadium, and the heavy weight of national history finally be the advantage that tips the scales and secures a historic victory?